Yep. Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 at 6:01 PM. Present tonight, I have Councilman Podeska, Councilman McComber, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Porter, and Councilman Carnes. So we do have a quorum. I've asked Councilman McComber to lead us in our invocation, and then Councilman Carn to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear and gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee as a city, we're grateful for the many blessings Thou hast given us, particularly the blessing to live in this beautiful city and state. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the moisture that Thou hast provided, and we ask that Thou would protect those who are driving and those who are clearing the roads, that everyone will be able to be more patient and be able to get to their destinations safely. Heavenly Father, we ask a special blessing upon us this night that we'll be able to evaluate the presentations that are brought before us and deliberate together as a council and make decisions that benefit the city, Saratoga Springs, today and into the future. Heavenly Father, we also ask a special blessing upon all of our first responders and those serving in the military around the world and here at home, and we ask that Thou bless them and protect them. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right. I just never had that.
Try to get up and you're smacking me. Okay, we've got public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda. We have no public hearings tonight. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Is anybody here for public input this evening? Okay, if you want to come up and state your name and address for the record at the podium.
Hi, this is Joanna Graham with, I'm at 111 East Broadway in Salt Lake City. I just wanted to make a comment about, I know that we're looking into a text amendment to make prohibited use for a kennel in the Gateway overlay. My client has been working on this site since August and has spent about $45,000 knowing that this is a permitted use in the Gateway. So with that being the first thing that developers typically look into, you know, they were under the impression that this is something that's permitted in this area. I will say also that having a dog daycare facility in this area is really beneficial for the community. Having it in somewhere, you know, along a major corridor allows users who need to drop off their dog on the way to work to drop off their dog and get right back onto the interstate. So that's really beneficial for both pet suites as well as users. I think this is a need that you all have in your community. And I think there's a connotation with the word kennel, where when we hear the word kennel, we're thinking chain link fences and not a pretty facility. But I will say this is a full tilt-up building with masonry walls. There's a 6-foot fence around the outside exterior, and that's a masonry fence, and it's very well managed. So I think if we think of it more as a dog daycare facility rather than a kennel, that's what we're going for, and we're hoping to really provide something that's a benefit to the community. We'll work with you all on the exterior, but it's a really nice facility, and we hope that we can serve your community. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I got notes, if you don't mind. Brad Draper, 4836 West Lower Bend Drive. Also here on behalf of Pet Suites. This is something we've been working on since August under the knowledge that we've been under approved for use for C2 zoning, that we've spent $45,000 progressing forward in accordance with the city and our lawyers, getting everything done. Like it's already been stated, we are beautifying the city. We have full masonry, full tilt buildings that we feel are being a great asset and an add to the city of Saratoga Springs. With COVID, we know that our pets are our family members. And we've been putting out pings through the social medias with great response from all the city. There are 120 locations across America which are beloved by all the different cities that have these facilities within them. And as has been already been stated, we usually see kennels as something that is negative, but in this case, that is not the case. It is actually a beautification of the city. And they also signed 20-year leases, which is amazing for the city. They are an established company and bringing in revenue, as well as helping the citizens to also be a value add as contributing members of society. And sitting here in the great city of Saratoga Springs, that is all I have in my notes. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, McKay Parkinson. I live at 3998 East Clark Circle in Eagle Mountain. I'm also here with regards to this proposed land use change, and I feel like this proposed land use change, especially with regards to the dog kennel, is not a good use of the public's time. I feel like a dog kennel could be very beneficial to myself personally as a resident of this area, and I think it would be beneficial for the council to not approve this land use change. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Kayla, there was a letter submitted.
Okay, I'm just going to read through until we hit our 3 minutes. Good evening to members of the City Council of Saratoga Springs. My name is John Zilch. I am the Director of Development of Compton Addy. Compton Addy is based in Cincinnati, Ohio. We are presently working with Pet Suites on various development sites in the Salt Lake City area. Pet Suites is a national tenant focused on dog boarding, daycare, grooming, and training. I apologize that I will not be able to attend tonight's meeting. We will be represented at the meeting by Joanna Graham from Kinley Horn, who represents Compton Addy as their civil engineer consultant, and Ryan Flint with Mountain West Commercial Real Estate Pet Suites Regional Site Broker. When we located this project in 2022, we met with the city to discuss our proposed use. Due to the residential expansion in the area, there is an increased need for high-quality commercial pet kennels. COVID has only served to increase that demand. When I met with the city, we were told and confirmed with our legal counsel that the Pet Suites is a permitted use in the city of Saratoga Springs, existing C2 zoning code. While Pet Suites use was permitted by the existing zoning code, the site was not large enough for the existing parking requirement. We spoke with the owner of the site about acquiring more land for our parking, but that was not feasible. We then met again with the city to explain the situation. We also explained that customers would drop and pick up their pets at various times so parking would not be an issue. The city of Saratoga Springs agreed. We received the staff recommendation of approval of a code amendment to allow our parking. On December 1st, 2022, the Planning Commission followed the staff recommendation and approved the code amendment for parking. On December 6, 2022, City Council voted against the proposed code amendment, not based upon the parking, but based upon the use. Again, Pet Suites use is a permitted use under the existing C2 zoning code. After the unexpected vote of City Council, we were informed that we could now purchase additional land to satisfy the parking requirements because a proposed sale had fallen through. We contacted the city again, but we were told that City Council was now going to expedite an approval process so that our use would no longer be permitted. Obviously, this expedited approval process is concerning. To anticipate and again clarify various points, Pet Suites is a national tenant. I have attached photos for your review. They signed 20-year leases with extensions, so they intend to occupy the space for many years. Their buildings are beautiful and are embraced by communities around the United States. The exterior exercise areas for the animals are fenced with multiple materials in compliance with applicable building codes. When the animals are outside exercising, there are 1 to 3 attendants with them. As a general rule, pet owners view their pets as part of their families. They want to care for them at the highest level. They want ease of dropping off. Okay, and you got sent this via email, so you can read the rest there. There were some pictures attached.
Okay, is there any other public comment? If not, I'll close it at this time. Okay, I will close the public input. At this time, we'll move on to reports. Nothing really happened over the holidays from the mayor's side for meetings. But Councilman Carn?
Yeah, the Utah Lake Authority had a 4-hour meeting and we came up with a visioning statement.
Oh,
It was great. 4 hours? 4 hours, yeah.
Sentence?
Yes. And now we've got another 4-hour meeting in January to come up with the next stage. So, yeah. Yeah, so we've got a visioning statement. It's great. No, not ready.
this wasn't scheduled for that
It
one.
has to have the punctuation added.
The and is capitalized.
No, but it was actually good, productive. Could have been a little shorter probably. We have another long meeting in January and I'll bring some stuff back in February after that.
Okay. Other reports from the council? Okay. Administration?
Just to confirm, sorry, our council retreat is when?
Next Friday,
Thursday night,
Thursday night and Friday.
Friday,
Oh, okay.
dinner
For
with
the dinner.
department heads.
Okay.
Okay.
That,
Mark?
that's a
Mayor, just a couple of very quick items. First one is, at our last council meeting, we had several comments regarding to-go signs and things of that nature. I wanted to make sure we are working on that, as well as I assume there's some other sign get made. Wanted to make sure, though, that the full council was supporting the to-go signs is not counting as, the to-go parking spots not counting as required parking for the site. That was one of those questions that came up and it was discussed. But before we go start drafting code, I want to make sure that that was the direction you wanted us to be heading in.
So real quick, I wanted us to look into it, and maybe it's a percentage, maybe you get to count it as half.
Okay.
But the problem is like Cafe Rio took 12 spots.
right.
And now there's nowhere to park for people going in the restaurant, and the whole parking requirement is for people who are going into the restaurant. And then you have the 8 spots available for the Uber Eats driver. And that's just concerning to me because we already are very tight in our parking requirements, and it's already we already have issues. So maybe it's a percentage, maybe it's all or nothing, I don't know.
Okay, no, that's good. Now, is there the majority of you wanting us to take a look at that?
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do some research, we'll figure out what other communities are doing to try and address this concern, and then bring back some recommendations.
And I do think that example is one of the more egregious ones that I've seen.
And this is one, I was just informed earlier today that in order for us to purchase new Central Utah water contracts, we will be required to meet their outdoor water requirements, which is much more restrictive than what we currently have. Some of the things that are a little bit concerning is for example, as I read the code, side yards would not be allowed to have grass. You can't have any grass in any area that's less than 8 feet. So for example, a side yard that has a window well, if it's a 10-foot side yard, a window well would make it less than 8 feet, and therefore you couldn't put grass on a side yard. Those are some concerns. Just in general, there's other concerns such as the maximum grass that could be in a yard would be 35% of the yard. And so I know that these are some things that we've discussed as a community in the past. I know we're very anxious and we do have good conservation standards. These standards are far more restrictive. So I'm going to be reaching out to them, getting additional information, and then bringing that item back to you to discuss as a council. But again, it's pretty restrictive on that. We count tree canopies. They don't count tree canopies. So in actuality, their ordinance would require us to add landscaping from my interpretation of that. And so I want to get with Central Utah and try and figure out, is there a strict interpretation that they're trying to go for? Because in some ways, they're being, less restrictive in some areas and more restrictive than we are in other areas. And I think that there's got to be kind of a delicate balance to strike homeowners' needs.
Mayor.
Yeah.
And I just, on the record, have a real problem with Central Utah dictating to us how we're using, 99% of the water we buy from them is using for culinary, not irrigation. And they're dictating to us how we have our landscaping standards. And I have a real problem with that. I think we need to look at, make sure that everyone's legal in their dictates here.
So, for example, I know there's people that have been interested in the Flip Your Strip type program and things of that nature. And again, our park strips are generally 8 to 9 feet, which would be allowable under that. But at any point, if it's narrower than 8 feet, the way I read their code, it then makes the whole park strip so that it's not eligible for grass landscaping. So I have some concerns, just knowing our community, knowing what we've discussed over the years with our landscaping requirements. So I'll reach out to Central Utah, but I just wanted to put that on your radar, that in order for us to be able to acquire additional water right contracts from,
This does not affect our
We got
current
62 minutes.
does not affect our current.
Future water contracts.
It would be future water contracts.
years from
And
now.
future uses, yeah.
I'm not sure it's 20 years. I think there's some large-scale
But, I mean,
development
this
that's
is
coming.
This is not a, they're gonna stop selling us water next year issue.
No. But anyway, I just wanted you to be aware that that's going to be on the horizon for a discussion point. And I believe that, staff's been working hard to keep our streets cleaned, and we have a lot of lane miles that we've been working on, but we want to offer our appreciation to the Public Works Department for the amazing job they've been doing. And so it's been a heck of a week in the last snow removal year, from previous years, but we're excited for the water that's coming to the community. So, Mayor, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Reports were in the packet. We'll move to the consent item. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent items as listed on the agenda with any staff findings and the conditions.
I have a first from Councilman Porter,
Second.
second Councilman Wilden. Any further discussion? McComber.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Carn.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I've had a few councilmen ask if I would entertain a motion to table items 3 and 4. I will entertain that motion if somebody wants to.
I want to talk to my concerns and then I'll make a motion. So I was part of the Gateway Overlay Committee, and the deeper I get into the maps, and technically I would like to table on 4, just the Gateway Overlay uses. There are uses being stricken in there that I'm not comfortable striking, around storage and some of the other commercial uses that I think need more work and more definition. I think by striking them, we are eliminating things that we actually want or would be a benefit in the gateway use. So I would like to make a motion to table 3 and the gateway overlay uses in 4, so that we can continue to work on the maps. And in the maps, what I'm getting at here is we are restricting entire plats as part of this, which is putting a burdensome restriction on areas that are far off of the gateway zone or the gateway area. And I think we need to look at that and say, we're going to restrict a defined area in a gateway and not an entire plat that it could affect. So I just think 3 and 4 gateway overlay uses need more work and more definition before we do that and hinder ourselves in the future.
Well, Chris, can I make a point? The whole point of pending ordinance is that you still work on it. It's a pending ordinance. It's not, you can change it.
This isn't
On 4. It's
So
a pending
4 is-
ordinance. The whole point of it is to say, here's what we're looking at, and then we can still make changes when we come forward. 4 is the pending ordinance.
There is a motion on the table, and I will second that motion.
So I haven't
Actually, make a
haven't made a
motion.
motion, so.
Oh.
So there is no motion, Chris.
All right.
I'm going to move to table 3 and the gateway overlay uses in 4 so that they can be worked on more. I'm not comfortable with them.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so I have a first from Councilman Carn and a second from Councilman Porter. And all we're tabling in item 4 is the gateway overlay uses, right? You're not doing the car wash.
Yeah, site plan approvals and
plan.
car washes, I think I'm comfortable there.
Okay, so I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Porter,
Aye.
Wilden,
Aye.
McComber,
Nay.
Podeska,
Aye.
Carn.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1 to table item 3 and just the gateway portion of item 4.
Mayor, if I could, at the end of our council meeting, if you could give us a little specificity on some of the things
Absolutely.
that would help us out.
Okay, perfect. Business item 1, the Riverwalk at Saratoga Springs Rezone Development Agreement.
Okay, this one, we don't have anything on the screen for you for this one. You saw it previously, and then this is just to finalize the development agreement. It was approved with a condition that we finalize a development agreement. And then what's proposed in the development agreement is that the Riverside Drive right-of-way be dedicated, and then they would be reimbursed. So they wouldn't be reimbursed for the land, but they would be reimbursed for upsizing construction. That's what's proposed in the development agreement.
Any questions?
No questions. I just appreciate the developer working with us. I think this is what we asked. When was it on? November. Whenever they came. I don't see the date on there.
12/6.
Yeah, 12/6, and this is great.
Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item 1 as stated on the agenda, including any staff findings and conditions.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? McComber,
Aye.
Wilden,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Carn,
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Business item 2, moderate income housing implementation plan, general plan amendment.
Can I ask for a clarification on item 4? It was just the gateway overlay uses, but we didn't address the car wash or site plan.
We're
We're still gonna.
still going to have those discussions, just the overlays tabled, correct? Okay,
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here today for a general plan amendment as part of the recent adoption of the most recent up-to-date general plan that we did. Our consultant also proposed our moderate income housing implementation plan to the state. They kicked it back to us and said that we needed a specific implementation plan that was adopted into the actual general plan. So that's what we've proposed, a little amendment to an addendum to the general plan. There's also just this little box that we added to the housing pages that says see the appendix. I have the strategies up here if we need them for discussion, and I'll turn this over to you for discussion.
any comments, questions?
No, I reviewed it earlier today and it looks good. I especially like some of the discussion around the challenges we face, given Proposition 6, as well as the fact that we're growing. Councilman Wilden can probably back me up on this. When we're dealing with the legislature, we oftentimes are lumped in with all the other cities in the state, and most of the representatives up there don't necessarily realize that we're doing, close to 1,800 permits a year. So, when we're being lumped in with a city that's doing 10, it's difficult. And so I appreciate that we're drawing attention to some of these challenges that we're facing out here on the west side of the lake.
Mayor and Council, if I could, I want to give special props to Tippy and our planning staff for, some of the work they've done on this. I think it's fantastic. I do think the narrative, especially Prop 6, and how that's impacted the community is it's very appropriate for our planning document to be able to capture that. So, again, I think they did a good job in getting a quick turnaround. And so by you adopting this tonight, it gets us in compliance with B 462 or 463?
462. I think 462.
462 from last year, so we appreciate their efforts.
And I'm grateful that our staff was able to put this together so quickly. I'm quite frustrated that they had to do it.
Okay, if that's all the discussion, I'll entertain a motion on item 2.
I move to approve business item number 2 dated today
I'll second.
with all staff findings and conditions.
Sorry, I'll second that.
First from Councilman Podeska, second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion? Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
All right.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 4.
All right. Okay, before we get into this, so I'm going to skip over these map amendment slides. And then we're talking about that. So based on our concern and our proposals that have been coming forward in relation to the gateway, both the map amendments and uses, and based on what just occurred tonight with deferring those, I would recommend, if the council is willing to do that, that we have a group work session such as we did with the office warehouse or the heavy commercial zone that we created. I think based on all the conversations and reviews and potential questions that came through the entire process at a staff level, both planning and legal, and then also at Planning Commission and their concerns and their various adjustments that they came up with, and now at City Council still having questions about what areas should be included and what uses should or should not be prohibited. I think it would be a good idea for us to have a work session.
I think that'd be a great idea. I think Councilman McComber and Councilman Carn started with this program. If they're both willing, I would like to see them both still involved with it.
Absolutely. I'm just wondering if the
Council's
entire
representative.
council might.
Can we do it at the retreat? Can we spend some time on that? Is that,
Yeah?
well, I mean, if we spend 30 minutes on it, I mean, there's things on here like outdoor storage. That needs to be defined better. If we just blanket that on there, it limits us too much. So I'd love to be able to do that if we could spend a few minutes at the retreat, give some real feedback.
Yeah, and again, there are some uses on here that, for example, like payday lenders, I believe that's the, what's the official title of it?
Non-depository.
Non-depository institutions. There were some things that we had prohibitions on or other restrictions on, vape shops, tattoo parlors, things like that, that we had some restrictions that we felt was probably something that we'd intended to capture in this, but wasn't captured in the original draft. And so we kind of threw all those in, trying to capture what we thought was more of kind of the general vision. So I apologize if we went over board on adding items that, might have created buckets that you weren't necessarily interested in. And so if you'd like, we'll definitely put a discussion, work session item on for that.
Yeah, like shooting range.
Happy to
I
do
have
that.
no problem with an indoor shooting range.
Okay.
It's like any other business, yeah.
Okay. So I think that maybe what we could do is let's pivot to the car wash spacing,
Yeah.
the site plan approvals that was city initiated as part of this, so that we can make sure and capture at least those component parts that you're interested in putting into place tonight.
So the language that is in the staff report has been altered based on further discussions. And so what we have here tonight is what we are proposing. Sarah, maybe you've had more involvement in that, the construction of that language. I don't know if you would want to address that, or I can go ahead.
Oh, there you are.
So there's language in the staff report, and then we wanted to propose some alternatives as well. Option 1 that you're seeing here is similar to the language we use for hotels. And so we say 500 feet from the existing residential zone property as measured from the nearest point of the car wash building to the nearest residential zone, and with an exception that if it's across an arterial, then it would be 300 feet. And then there's another option, an option 2, and that would just be 500 feet as measured from building to building. So basically from the car wash building to a residential building, and that doesn't take into consideration the zoning. So the first option takes into consideration the zoning, and the second option is building to building.
And Sarah, this is, it still requires 5,000 feet from another car wash.
That is still in the code. That's not changing. This is just adding an additional requirement from residential.
Okay.
So just for my clarification, because we passed something at our last meeting that
Yes.
was general code, that was citywide, that
This is
wasn't the
also
overlay. Is
citywide.
this is also citywide,
This
not
isn't-
part of the overlay?
Right, this
Okay.
is not specific to any zone, this is citywide. Right.
I-
And same with the other one, the 5,000 feet was citywide, and
Right.
this is proposed to be.
I personally like option one, but I mean,
And so this parallels the hotel restrictions to
Right.
residential.
that's why it's consistent with other code that we already have existing, so that's kind of why I like it, is we're using the same.
And just for my information, if there's an existing car wash, that doesn't restrict residential from coming in building next to it.
It's existing residential.
Well,
A new residential can come in and move next to it, that's not a problem, it's just the car wash can't move in next to residential.
Unless it's,
it would really go both ways. If the car wash was there first, then it would also put a restriction on the residential that's coming in around it. So, but actually, it doesn't do it that way, because any new one, if you go with option one and it measures to the residential zone boundary, then it doesn't do it that way. If you go with option two, then it would do it that way.
But theoretically, if you rezoned a property in the future and move that boundary closer to an existing car wash, then that would be a grandfathered
They would have to
use.
put a park.
not with option one though, because it's talking about.
The car wash
exist-
would be a grandfathered use.
Yeah, and so the language, you want to just look at the
it says-
500 feet of an existing residentially zoned property as measured, with the exception of the 300-foot exception. So,
The zone is the key, that's why it's better zone.
Yeah.
If we had a agricultural zone and we changed it, that's where we can.
Right.
But again,
I-
it's much safer.
But I like the word use of existing, because that's what we're always trying to protect, because if there's a car wash and someone wants to go and build a house right next to that or whatever, there you know exactly what they're getting
And we
into.
can give it.
Yeah.
Good point.
Option one.
Option one.
so is that all the code changes? for
What's the
car
site
washes?
plan
No, the
approval
site plan
one?
approval is
Right.
changing the chart.
There's there's,
Okay.
go ahead. Back to you, Ken.
Okay, so we're looking at the site plan approvals. There's actually two sections that we're looking at amending. They were crafted so that we will allow city council or provide for the approval of all non-residential site plans to occur at city council level, including all gateway overlay site plans. So that would include residential, multifamily in the gateway area. Then Planning Commission would maintain final approval with multifamily and 2 and 3 family site plans and major amendments to that category of site plans. And staff would maintain the approval for any minor site plan.
Who handles one family?
Site plan is not required for
Okay.
family.
All right, I was just like, we've got everybody listed except for
Yeah.
I do want to mention as well, we do have a lot of planned community zoning, and within that zoning, these are staff approvals. So you see them at the village plan level, and then the staff approvals. So this would be for anything outside of that zone.
Okay.
I think the point of this was to bring in so that we would see the major projects, right? So they don't just go to planning and get approved at that level. Yeah, as long as we're capturing that here.
Where we're trying to create a theme for the city.
Right, right. So what you're saying, Sarah, is we won't see that if it's a PC zone?
No, you would see it at the village plan level, but they don't always specify every user at that level. However, they do
Right.
show the layout, they usually show the larger use and the
Okay.
layout of the,
Like the design standards and stuff for the site,
right.
Yeah, okay,
which I think is what we're really interested
yeah.
I think I think I know the answer. I just want to make sure that I'm interpreting this correct. Site plan, multifamily, 2 and 3 family, planning commission, a major amendment to something that the planning commission's already approved. That goes back to the planning commission.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was not like a major amendment to anything else. It's just only, if they've approved it and it sits with them, coming back and approving a major amendment to something they've already approved, makes sense.
Yep. So that's all we have for that. So I just want to emphasize that what we're approving tonight is a resolution for a pending ordinance. So this will come back to you after it goes to the Planning Commission for final approval for ordinance amendments.
Can I ask the multifamily, et cetera, we're listing it out now. Where did it fall under before? Just these site plan amendments or just general site plan?
Yeah, those, they have.
Everything was just lumped into site plan, is that?
Right.
So the
So-
code requires those categories of site plans to come to you. So multifamily, 2 and 3 family, and non-residential. So, right, and then right now, they're all stopping at planning commission if it's a site plan.
So if it goes to, say, apartment complex, which is more than 3, that site plan comes to the council then?
Oh,
No,
that's considered multifamily. That would be.
Well, it says 2 and 3 family, I guess.
That's planning commission approval.
Multifamily.
There
so
Apparently I
two
can't read.
categories of multifamily in our
I did
code.
read this in advance, but apparently forgot everything.
basically, it's saying any residential stops at planning commission, but any commercial comes to both.
Okay. I mean, is there any scenario where, I know if it's in a planned community, that comes through us. Is there other scenarios where it's a very large development where, I guess it would just go to the planning commission if it's not under a PC zone?
Do you mean if it's residential?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm trying to think, is there any major residential development out there that doesn't fall under a PC zone? Because I know Wildflower's under it, D.R. Horton, Wander.
DAP stuff.
So if it's already zoned, say, for a specific housing type, then it wouldn't. So let's hypothetically say it's zoned R110. Then it wouldn't necessarily require council, or would it?
No, it would not.
But if they were coming for a rezone.
Well, if it's R110, it doesn't do a site plan, it does a plat, and that does come to council.
Okay. But not site plan.
Mixed use, that would come to council because there's commercial component?
Right. A lot of these do come to council anyway because they require plats and site plans, so the plat comes to council.
I'm probably overthinking this. And my Councilman McComber's nodding his head, yes, I'm overthinking it. But I'm just thinking if like, we had a big Wildflower come in, 1,000 units or something like that, it's pretty impactful to city, or to Guayo, right, that didn't come under a PC zone. I think that's something that the council would want some input, because 1,000 housing units would have a significant thing.
So Toguayo's a PC zone.
You're ruining my argument.
I'm sorry. Let me give you, for example, like Sitla's
Yes.
discussion of their ground. That's actually going to come in under an annexation. So you'll get to see that from that particular approval.
But
Yeah.
And when they plat.
okay.
So I think that this is pretty
We s-
broad,
we see-
but generally speaking, I think it's probably a pretty, good distribution of that.
Okay, I would just ask if there's something that we haven't thought of that
Yeah.
you see coming down the pipeline that would have a major impact to the look and feel of the city overall, that we just come
Well-
through here.
We'll consider that as some of these other changes, and we'll just
Yep.
do a separate look on that for future.
And maybe there's nothing, but
Well, this is the pending ordinance, so you can change the wording.
no. Yeah,
Okay, if there's no other discussion on those, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve business item 4, car wash spacing and site plan approvals, selecting option 1 for the car wash spacing, with resolution R23-3 dated today. Resolution.
so it doesn't have any.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter,
Second,
second from Councilman Wilden. Any further discussion on the motion?
Do we need to specifically remove the
That was already
abuse?
tabled.
Okay, from the previous one, okay.
Okay. Karn?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Kadeska?
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we have closed session tonight, Mark?
We do not.
Okay.